the 5 most expensive class staple cards for every Flesh and Blood class. My name is Alex and welcome to this video. I think it is very important if you're starting out to play Flesh and Blood to look at all the different classes available in Flesh and Blood and think about how much money you want to spend on the hobby. Because depending on which class you're choosing, the amount of money you need to spend down your Flesh and Blood road can be quite different. So let's jump into the video. Actually, when we are looking at the contents of this video, we will not talk about the generic staple cards. There's a separate video on the Fabled Academy exactly for this. We will also not look at the specialization cards for the most part in this video, because those are very specific to only a certain amount of heroes. Rather, in this video, we want to look at an overview for the most generic class cards. So we will not look at the talents, just to make this clear right from the beginning of this video. I will maybe make a separate video only for the talent class cards. Let me know if you want to see that video. Also, just to make sure you know about it, we will focus on the constructed formats that are legal for most of the armories out there. So classic, constructed or blitz. Of course, some of the cards that we are talking about are also important for living legend, but for most of the part we are talking about classic, constructed and blitz. So let's start with the first class, and it's actually the most expensive class that you can choose in Flesh and Blood at the moment, and that's the assassin class. We have different heroes already seeing a success throughout 2024, and also in the early of 2025 we're seeing new spoilers for Arachne in the Hunted set. So assassin will be an exciting class to play for sure in the future, but an expensive one. So let's look at the most expensive staple class card that we'll see actually in the whole video. And that is called Codex of Frailty. It's a dual class card and it's one of the most powerful cards in Flesh and Blood. So if you're looking to get 3 copies of Codex of Frailty, you're looking at 225 euros. So 75 euros for a copy each. We will also see this card being featured on the Ranger list, just a spoiler. Then the next expensive card on this list for Assassin is Surgical Extraction. Actually, 30 euros. So if you're only wanting to get surgical extraction and Codex of Frailty, a playset each, it's over 300 euros already for the Assassin core. So then Already Dead, and here it gets interesting, because if you compare Already Dead to Surgical Extraction was a card featured in Dynasty, which was unintentionally short printed and then brought back to fill that gap in Dusk Till Dawn. Though if we are looking at Already Dead, it's a card from a scheme that we will see a lot during the video, and that's called the expansion slot. Because actually, Bright Lights wasn't an assassin booster pack, but the expansion slot is there to support every class throughout different booster sets, even though that booster set is not made for that class. So Already Dead is around 25 euros if you want to get a playset, and the trend keeps on continuing for Assassin. Leave No Witnesses, also an attack action, a stable card for Assassin, actually around 19 euros, 20 euros if you want to get a playset, even though one copy is at 14 euros. It gets kind of expensive if you want to build a core for the Assassin class. And then actually 2 cards featured here on the 5th place for Assassin, Just a Nick and also Persuasive Prognosis, both cards coming from Part the Mistveil and also being around 5 euros each. Yeah, starting at least. So Assassin kind of expensive, but if we continue on, we will see that actually there are a lot cheaper classes out there. Just like the Warrior class. First brought to us in Welcome to Wraith, comparable in Assassin. We saw Assassin first in Dynasty and then only in Outsiders for a main booster set. But we will get a look at the Warrior class here and seeing a lot different warriors. And that is something to really think about in the beginning. You're not really only choosing a hero to play, but also you're choosing a class to play. So maybe your hero goes to Living Legend and then you can switch to another hero, or you're specializing really on one class There are multiple examples. Even we have interviews here on the Fabled Academy with Sir Bolton expert Josh Lau, who also plays the Rinthia and touches on Olympia and Kasai too. So consider that when choosing your class. Coming to the warrior class, the most expensive warrior staple here is Blade Flurry, actually a card from 2024 featured in Heavy Hitters, and it being an attack reaction that already showed their power during the Heavy Hitters meta, people were also speculating on it for the next meta in the Hunted. So this card has slightly gone up to 20 euros actually a copy, or if you want to get the play set, it's 60 euros, but definitely much more affordable than Codex of Frailty, right? Another expansion slot card here from Rosetta is Unshattered. Shattered? Let me know how to pronounce it right. It's a card that has gone up in value due to recent spoilers for the Hunted. It's around 14 euros. And definitely the effect is not to underestimate, but its true power will be shown in the next meta with the Hunted. Let's come to Emboldened Blade, another expansion slot card from Bright Lights. It is a blue pitch, a 3-block, which is nice to have just in general, and then also it can be good if you're running against a deck that wants to play a lot of defense reactions against you. So this card is sitting around 9 euros to 10 euros for a playset each. And going on, there is a card I wanted to feature here that is really, I think, much more played in Brood, but it is a dual class card, right? And so being in the warrior class here, a card that you can consider to play is around 7 euros, the Runner card. Also, we have Glint the Quicksilver here. Even though featuring the Rinthia in the artwork, it's not a specialization card. Also not good in every warrior deck, I think. Though it being a blue pitch 3-block, it's interesting to get into when you want to consider the warrior class. Also 2 cards here featuring on the last spot around the same value, 2 euros each, from Heavy Hitters again. I like much more the card Commanding Performance. Which is kind of like Command and Conquer for warriors, but then also Shift the Tide of Battle can be interesting in the future too, but both being around 2 euro here at the last place definitely shows like the comparison to those cards featured in Assassin. Then let's get to the Brood class, and that's at least a class that you can play right from an Armory deck, just like you can play Sir Bolton from the Armory deck. And I play KO myself, but there's also a Shadow Brood called Levia Shadowborn Abomination that you can choose to try out if you're building Brood. Also, of course, there's Arena, but for now we want to look at the staples. And a staple card that you want to consider in Brood is Swing Big, which is around 23 to 24 or 25 euros. It comes from Everfest, and usually those Everfest Majestics, if they are being brought to the meta, can be quite expensive, and Swing Big is a good value card for sure. So down the road you might want to get that. I don't play it at the moment, it's too expensive for me now, but maybe I get it in the future. Then there is Smashing Performance, a card from the expansion slot from Bright Lights. It's around 9 to 10 euros if you want to get a playset in English. And also I have to say, I was considering to buy this, but I skipped on this because I wanted to get Sandpacking. And I think actually Sandpacking is a really good value card for the money. It's a better Command and Conquer in my opinion for the Brood class. Definitely a staple that you want to get in any Brood. And it's around 8 to 9 euros. Kind of nice. Then also there's Beast Within, a card that doesn't really seem to get a reprint. It is from Crucible of War. It's only sitting at 7.50 to 8 euros. So the question is if this card really needs a reprint. But if we see new Brood heroes in the next year, or even a Brood set, that could change quite drastically with Beast Within. Then, of course, we already featured it. Runner is definitely an option for KO to run into. Also for sure for decks that have access to cast Bones. But as we already talked about Runner, Bloodrush Bellow is here on the last spot for the Broods. Of course, the best staple in the Brood class and one of the most amazing cards to play in Flesh and Blood in general. And it's sitting around 6 euros at the moment, but slowly creeping up. And I'm wondering how many copies we see on the market in the next year if we see a Brood set or more Brood players coming to Flesh and Blood. Let's continue with Guardian, and we actually have a few Guardians, but not all of them can be played in Classic Constructed. So if we are focusing on the Classic Constructed side of things, there are quite different Guardian heroes at the moment. We have Victor Goldmane, high and mighty on his horse. Then we have our newly revealed or coming out, how do you say it in English? Jarl the Tridey from the Armory deck Origins. We have Betsy, skin in the game, and of course, all-time favorite Bravo Showstopper for Classic Constructed. And those Guardian cards actually are kind of cheap, even though some of them went up in price because of Jarl the Tridey. Still, they are kind of affordable, and much more affordable for sure than compared to Assassin. But if you're getting into Jarl, then also you need to pay for the elemental cards, and that is kind of expensive. But we're not talking about this in this video, maybe in the next one. Stamp Authority though, copies dried up on the market at the moment. It's around 8 to 9, even 10 euros. Crucible of War again, no reprint yet. Interested to see what happens to the value of this card. Then we have Pulverize, an all-time classic from Everfest, again around 5 to 6 euros. Definitely a tag to consider for your Guardian decks. And then Terra Sunder, and I played Bravo in the past myself, and Terra Sunder is an amazing card to play. Feels really good. Just love this card, honestly. Then this card is sitting around 5 euros. And then also, I wanted to mention Trounce because this is specifically a good card for Victor Goldmane, sitting around 5 euros. Yeah, not good for every Guardian deck, but for Victor Goldmane for sure. And then actually we have Orkan Old, and just noticed that I made a mistake here. It's an elemental card. It's very important though at the moment for Jarl, so yeah, sitting around 4 euros. My bad. So then we are featuring the Ninja class, and actually I'm very, very excited for the Ninja class because we already got 2 new ninjas in this year. Ira, Scarlet Revenger, and then also Zen, Tamer of Purpose, which are both featuring the Mystic border, and also Zen being a Mystic hero. But now we are getting Syndra, Drokai of Retribution, which is a Royal Draconic Ninja hero, and which also be evolving around daggers, which we haven't really seen that widely played yet, though Zen, Tamer of Purpose was playing, of course, with that one dagger. What's the name? I forgot it at the moment. The Needle. Yeah, the Zephyr Needle. So Ninja cards are also a little bit more cheaper at the moment, and with Ancestral Harmony, a very good value card. Blue, pitch, 3 block, gives you access to your combo cards from your deck, buffs your combo cards, sitting around 10 to 13 euros here. Kind of nice. Then we have Winds of Eternity, Everfest again, around 8 to 9 euros here. Also blue pitch. Blue pitch also being, yeah, kind of relevant to the Ninja class, to be honest. Then we are featuring a card from an UPF product, Round the Table, Mauling Key, actually being also here in Majestic, around 9 to 10 euros, only being available from that Round the Table set. Then we have a kind of an interesting card, a defense reaction called Wax Off, which has the upside of giving you a Zen state token when you're playing Wax On before it, also being a defense reaction. It was very cheap only a few months ago, actually 1.5 months, something, was only 1 euro, but now it's around 8 to 10 euros. Very excited and honestly surprised, but we will see in the next year. Then we have Concealed Blade. Concealed Blade was already played during the Phi meta. It is also a dual class card, so you can play it in Assassin as well. And so I'm not really that wondered that this card creeped up in price to around 6 to 8 euros. Then the last card on the list here, it is an honorable mention, the Bittering Thorns, even though it being a common, it's the red version, only being available in the Round the Table product, just like Mauling Key, and also being around 11 to 12 euros. You need to keep that card in mind if you want to play Ninja. We are nearly half through the video, and we are at the Ranger class now. Ranger has, I think, the least amount of heroes available for you to play at the moment, even Lexi Livewire being a Ranger only available to the Living Legend format, and Azalea being pretty high in points already. So I'm curious to see if we see another Ranger in the next year, but for now let's come to the class generic Ranger cards. Codex of Frailty, again, you really need that card if you also want to play Ranger, specifically Azalea, if you want to win tournaments with her. Already talked about the price point. Then we have Premeditate. And Premeditate, as you can see, is not a Ranger card, but it being mostly played in Ranger, sitting around 18 euros. This is definitely a card that you need to keep in mind if you want to build a pool around Ranger. Then we have Codex of Bloodrot. I didn't feature this card in the beginning of the video with Assassins. I think Rangers like to run this card a lot more at the moment. This can change for sure, but definitely sitting around 11 euros, you need to keep this card in mind when building Ranger. Also, we have Rain Razors. Excuse me, guys. And Rain Razors, I think, was the first instance so far. Buffs all of your arrows during the turn. Doesn't have a block value, but definitely is worth the money if you want to play Azalea. It's sitting around 8 to 9 euros. And then the last card on the list is actually an arrow called Battering Bolt. Also a card from Everfest. Around 8 to 9 euros. And if you want to get specifically arrows for Azalea, you have some more expensive ones for sure. Also Remorseless is one, but I only wanted to feature the 5 most expensive ones. So let's talk about the Wizard class. And Wizard is honestly one of the most interesting classes in Flesh and Blood. Definitely is playing on a different axis and also has some of the most unique characters to it, like Icelander Stormbind, only available in Living Legend, Kano Drakai of Aether, Verdance, and then also Orsilio. I really like the Wizard class, though I don't play it myself. I really like to play Verdance and Draft, though. Let's look at these staples, though. Looking at the Majestic staples for Wizard, they're actually kind of cheap. For sure, if you compare it to Assassin. Sitting around 10 euros. Also a card being from Crucible of War with no reprint yet. Then we have the card Mind Warp from Dynasty. 6 euros to 7 euros, actually. I'm not sure this card is that important for every Wizard, though. You have to keep this in mind if you want to play it. Swell Tidings then is the next one, also a card from Dynasty, around 4 to 5 euros. Then the next one is Aetherize, actually, Crucible of War again. This is a theme, right? Crucible of War doesn't really, have any reprints, but as you can see, I don't really think we need a reprint for Aetherize yet. It's around 4 to 5 euros, definitely a card to consider with, being an out actually against other Wizards. Then we have Kindle. Kindle, actually, I play sometimes against Kano on my local armory. And when I see Kindle, I always know, like, there's something strange going on. Definitely a card that you want to get when you're wanting to play Wizard. And then the last one, also on the same cost curve, that's why I'm including this one here as well, is Scour, an Everfest Majestic again. Specifically good if you want to play against, or if you are facing any decks like Viserai, for example, that is getting a lot of tokens on the board. Let's come to the Mechanologist class here. And I have to say, Mechanologist is the most weird class in some way, because there are so many different playstyles in here. If we're looking at Max, if we're looking at Teklovossen, and then there's also the Armory deck Dash.io, right? With the OG Dash being around as well, though it being close to Living Legend. But definitely coming to the class staple cards for Mechanologist, Twin Drive is the most expensive Majestic at the moment, followed by Construct, Nitro Mechanoid / Nitro Mechanoid. That's specifically only being really relevant if you are playing Max the Hype Nitro. So going on with the list, Heist is definitely a card that you want to get when you're building a staple Mechanologist card pool. It's sitting around 20 euros. Excuse me. Kind of an expensive pool to build, only looking at these two ones. But the other ones are getting more cheap here, with Pulse Wave Harpoon being the next one around 10 euros for a playset. Definitely a banger of a card, but also another Crucible of War card here. I need to get something here. So Magnetic Shockwave is actually Magnetic Shockwave is actually around €8 at the moment, it being a blue pitch 3 block, also being just simply a good option to have. And then also we have 2 cards here at the end around the €8 mark. System Reset recently had a jump with that -IO, built from Worlds, but also Evo cards are a thing. If you want to build Teklo-Vossen, there are a lot of different Evos out there, but definitely you need to consider these when you're wanting to run into Teklo-Vossen. Then we are coming to the meet and greet of Flesh and Blood. And actually, that's not only a card named in Flesh and Blood, it's also that Runeblade in general just proved to be super strong in all of the history in Flesh and Blood. Starting with Viserai, coming to Chain, which is Living Legend already, over to Briar, which is also already Living Legend, and now our new 2 Runeblades from this year, Aurora Shooting Star and Florian Rodwood Harbinger. 2 very different heroes, but I like them being around in the meta. So if we're only looking at the Runeblade class specific staples, Swarming Gloomveil is the first to mention, honestly. It being an Everfest all-time classic, sitting around 22 to €25 for playset. Definitely a super strong card. Definitely a staple that you want to have when you're building a Runeblade staple pool. Then there is Rattlebones. And if we would have looked at the talent cards, these lists would have been very different, but Rattlebones is definitely on the generic Runeblade cards, so to say, for around €12 each. Then there is Revelin Runeblood, another Everfest Majestic, also around €12. And then there comes a new card actually from Rosetta, kind of a powerful card, very interesting card for the Runeblade class, and definitely one that you want to have in your pool if you're building Runeblade, sitting around 10 to €11. And then the last one on the list is Sonetta Galaxia, actually from the expansion slot in Heavy Hitters, sitting around €6. Then we are coming to the last class actually. Illusionist, also an all-time favorite class by a lot of loved fans in the community. Though, already having 2 heroes on the Living Legend system with Prism, Sculptor of Arclight, and then Draw My Ash Artist. And now we are having Enigma, our blue Illusionist, and then also a replacement for Prism, the Prism Awakener of Soul. We also have, Enigma New Moon, only for Blitz though. And when we are looking at the staples, we see 1 or 2 expensive ones, like Miraging Metamorph in the beginning, much more affordable though than, Assassin for sure, sitting around €16 here. And then the next one already jumps down to €11 with Shimmers of Silver. Honestly, if you're looking to build Illusionist, you also need to look at the generic card pool to get more defensive tools, and then also to look into which Illusionist specifically you want to play, because those playstyles differ heavily depending on the hero you choose. Definitely the next card on the list though from those generic Illusionist cards is Phantom Tidemore. It's sitting around 7 to €8. Then the next one is Dissolve Reality, a card that I really like in general because it gives you just another option to disrupt your opponent's arsenal, sitting around 5 to €6. And then there's already, a very hefty price jump here down. Actually, the cheapest cards that we saw on this list, Lost in Thought and then also Restless Coalescence here, I wanted to mention in the end. Both sitting at under €1 if you want to get 1 copy in a foreign language, but definitely sitting around 1 to €2 for playset for the English versions. So definitely not the only way to look at this pool is the staple Majestic cards. Like I said, definitely also look into the generic staple cards like Command and Conquer and stuff before you buy into this card pool, because not only are these class specific staples important, but also the generics. And then also keep in mind, we knew from the beginning on that there are more classes coming. Definitely we didn't see that many yet. there are more classes than we looked at in this video, but they are not important at the moment for Classic Constructed. That's why I didn't feature it in this video. But we definitely have on our list to being revealed in the future: Cleric, Necromancer, Alchemist. That's it actually, and many more. Honestly, we have Bard already, but that is just like UPF thing. But definitely I'm so curious to see, because there's also speculation going on for Necromancer, because let me bring that card up. It's called Call to the Grave, which gives a hint that we may be getting an Necromancer in the future. Okay, just to mention this. Also look at the legendary cards. We might do a video only on the legendary cards in the future, but definitely this is also a price point for you to get into if you want to get competitive in Flesh and Blood alongside all of those staple cards for your class. Also, like I said, be aware of some heroes having talents, and that also mentioning this, that you maybe need to get into those talent class cards as well. Okay, we're at the end now. I'm kind of exhausted. I need to shut down now, but it was so much fun doing this video. I hope it helped you getting into Flesh and Blood or answering some of your questions. Definitely, if you want to check out more videos, check out the videos on the Fabled Academy. We have interviews with the best players around the world. We also have beginner videos. But definitely, if you have any specific questions, mentioning them in the comments, and I do my best, or a community member maybe answers them for you. Thank you so much for tuning in this video, and we see us in the next one.